thing I want to talk about is working in a room for Black women. At the root, I'm fortunate enough, all my editors are Black women, even our editor-in-chief. So that's like a big deal to have, you know what I mean? Because they understand our process a little bit better. Can you just elaborate a little bit more about how that experience feels?
For sure, and I'll start by saying how the other experience feels. It's like, I don't know how many of you are in workplaces where you're the only person and the only one in a predominantly white environment. But I think sometimes you like don't realize how Black you are until you're surrounded. Full stop. It's like, I remember my first show I made, like, and it was like a soft, like Will Smith reference to like an episode of Fresh Prince. And I had 11 people turn and look at me and go, huh? And I was like, well, it's that episode where he and Jazzy Jeff, and they were like, oh, okay. And turned back and kept on working. And I was like, oh shit, I'm so Black. And I was like, I don't fit in. And it wasn't even that Black. Like, everybody watched Fresh Prince. But I was like, it literally hit me in that moment, despite like being raised in like a very white environment. Like, my family's Nigerian. So it's like, growing up, there were Nigerians in my town, and then there were white people. And I didn't really know that many American Black people until I got to college, and then even after college. And so I always felt other. Like, growing up, I was like, yeah, I'm super Black. Like, I don't fit in with all of these kids. And then you pursue a path that puts you even more on the extremes of other, and it can be very alienating. So it's like, I heard a writer for Queen Sugar, he said he's a drama writer and really likes like family genre stuff. And he said prior to working on Queen Sugar, he felt that he was either the family genre guy in the room or the Black guy in the room. And he said working on Queen Sugar was the first time he got to use both his hands. And I was like, that was such a beautiful phrase. And he's now the showrunner for Queen Sugar. He just got promoted this past year. And I thought that was such a beautiful phrase because I hadn't understood how to say how beautiful it was to work on Insecure until I heard that. And I was like, oh, right, before this, I was jokes or I was story problems. You know, I'm either like, here's something funny that could happen, or I don't know about that story beat. But on Insecure, it's like, here's this thing that happened to me last night. Can we mine this for story? Here's this thing my friends and I always say, can we mine this for story? And it was so exciting to be in an environment where like every part of me mattered because we were writing about people who could ostensibly be my friends, you know? So I think it's magical to work for people who look like you. And also when you see people who look like you moving up, then you know like, oh, there's a path for me. You know, it's like seeing a Shonda Rhimes helped me in grad school claim my space to be like, oh, some of what I'm writing, y'all don't understand. It's not that it's bad, y'all just don't get it, and that's fine. And now I have to move on from that. But if you don't see it, sometimes it's hard to believe it.
Yeah, I would agree, right? So you also mentioned in your tips, in your networking tips, fear.
Yeah.
And just kind of like overcoming fear, right? Because sometimes our own fears hold us back, like you said, from doing things. Like we think we can't, or we're worried about what people will say if we do. Things like that. So how do you overcome your fears?
Well, I think very often it's by giving them space at first. It's like allowing yourself to be afraid, and don't act like it's negative to feel fear, because it is. I think very often it's like like you see people who are your age or younger than you getting things that you want, and sometimes you're like, ooh, that feels bad. Why does that feel bad? And I'm always like, well, it's Darwinian to feel like somebody achieved something that I didn't get. Well, there's part of in our biological elements where like that means that they can eat and I cannot eat and I shall die, you know? And it's like, it's literally like ingrained, but it's like, hear that thought. It's like, don't beat yourself up for it. It's human, but it doesn't serve you. And it's like, it's human to have that fear, but how do I work to put it away? And that's by investing more in myself. So that's number one. And then number two is having peers. It goes back to the networking across. I remember in my grad program at UCLA, it was a class of 24 students, and of the 24, 10 wanted to do television. And of the 10, only 2 wanted to do comedy. The other person who wanted to do comedy was a girl named Lisa McQuillan. She was the only other Black kid in my program, and she's now one of my best friends. She writes for Grownish. And like, when I met her in grad school, I was like, well, if I exist, she exists, that means there are more. You know, I was just like, that means there are more. And everyone kept on being like, you're Black, oh, you must want to be Shonda Rhimes. And I'm like, no, I want to write comedy. And they're like, really? And they're all confused because they hadn't seen it. Everyone had forgotten about Girlfriends, forgotten about Living Single. So they're looking at us and thinking we're crazy. So we teamed up. And we created a web series called Lisa and Amy Are Black. It's gotten me jobs, you know, but it was like, sometimes it's like, if you're feeling afraid about being where you are, then find other people where you are. They're not your competition, they're your support. They're there to help you. Because when you rise, I rise. You know, it's like we all have to do it together, because it's not you or it's me. It's both of us or it's none of us. You know, we have to have that mentality. If we're not both moving up, then what are we doing? It's like, what's that song, Jay-Z on the album where he's like, if you're the only one who's rich, then you're not rich. I can't remember. I'm not a rapper. Did y'all know? Like, y'all know? On the Carter's album, he's like, if you're the only one who's rich in your crew, then your whole crew is poor, kind of thing. And I'm like, that's the mentality. It's like, and if you find people who are like you, then hopefully that helps to abate that fear.
Okay. And so in speaking to that, it's sort of like building your community, right?
Yeah.
So like we're in a space right now that builds community, the Metaphor Club, right? People come, everyone, like I come here and do my work, and there's all different kinds of creatives here doing their thing. So where do you find your community? How do you find your people?
Yeah, I think it is by talking about what you do. And honestly, cold calling and cold emailing and sliding into the DMs, it works. Like one of my really good friends in this industry, her name's Phoebe Robinson, she's a stand-up comic. She did one of the Two Dope Queens stand-up specials on HBO, which I executive produced. I met her because I sent her a DM on Twitter like 5 years ago. And I was like, longtime fan, first time caller, we're both comedy girls, wanna have brunch? And she thankfully said yes, and I think it was, she knew so few of her. And she was like, yeah, let's have brunch. And it was a weird brunch. We were both kind of feeling each other out. You know, we're like, so what do you do? And you know, like, it's like, are you for real? And then by the end, we were like, yeah, we both like each other. And we've been friends ever since. I have a pilot with her at Amazon, and now EP'd the Two Dope Queens stand-up special for HBO. And it's like, that came from a weird, random connection. And I think very often people are scared. People are scared to brag about themselves. They don't want to seem crazy. And it's like, I get a lot of weird messages in my DMs, like a lot of people being like, read my script. And I'm like, I can't legally, you know? It's like, because like if I read it and it was bad, like you could sue me, you know? If like an idea shows up, that's my idea, you know? So I'm like, I can't read your script. But like, if you present yourself in a right way and ask, can I send you my resume so that you can help me out with a job? Or it's like, here's what I'm working on, and I want you to watch my web series. Or, hey, I saw this of yours, and I'm also from this place, and I want to identify with you on this level. It's like, if you come correct, it's very rare that people shut you down, because there's so many people who don't do it right that it's easy to tell. It's like looking for an apartment on Craigslist. It's like you see the people who are like, hi, I have 12 cats. And you're like, no, this isn't gonna work. And then the people who are like, here's my Facebook profile, here's my job history, I need an apartment by this date, who are very clear. You're like, oh, this person is very clear, they're a human. And then, yeah, so I find that like people are scared very often to reach out, but if you do it in the right way, it's hard not to be taken seriously. And then also be working on you. Because I think it's not about what can you give me, what can you give me? Because very often, like I said, like very often there are already people in line that you're already trying to help. So when another person comes up saying, what can you give me? You're kind of like, I don't know what I can do for you, because I don't like have a pocket full of jobs. So I'm like, I don't know. But if there is just like, I'm gonna stay in touch with you, and I'm just gonna be here, you know, celebrating you. It's like you never really have to ask for a job. Everybody knows you want a job. So it's like, now what do you do to just be in somebody's space and let them know like, hey, I'm here seeing you, we're both thriving, we're both hustling, and I respect what you do, and here are the things that I do as well. I think that goes a long way to building a community. And then we also have a big brunch. Like on Facebook, there are a lot of Black female writers, like organized by Lena Waithe, and Nkechi Carroll, who's an EP on The Resident, and Erica, I'm forgetting her last name right now, but she worked on Being Mary Jane. And the three of them were all friends, and they're like, we know women who are working, but we don't know if they all know each other. So they just started emailing all of us, and we organized, and we got a big brunch going, and we add people to our group. It's like people get jobs, and you're like, we're gonna celebrate. It's like, okay, we're all gonna share each other's deadline posts. We're gonna do this stuff so that people know what other people are up to, and that the world can see these Black women are working. And we took a big photo. I actually wasn't even there, but we took a big photo. The whole group went to Palm Springs. I was at a wedding, but the whole group went to Palm Springs and took a huge photo and posted it on Facebook, and it kind of got picked up. And I've had friends who are like, execs who are like, hey, I saw that photo and we're looking for a black writer for this thing. Who in that photo is available? You know, it's like, it like actually worked and it got people jobs, and like that's incredible, but it's really by like showing up and waving and saying, hey, look at me. And sometimes that feels weird, but you kind of got to do that.